Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something wild, a really fascinating and honestly highly specific esoteric text by an author named Feng, titled, "You Are a Celestial Being When Your Mind Abides Nowhere." Whether you view this as a literal roadmap to the cosmos or just a fascinating psychological framework for detaching from modern anxiety, we are going to impartially map out this author's precise philosophical structure. We'll explore his exact method for achieving what he considers ultimate spiritual freedom, giving us a window into a detailed belief system that challenges literally everything about how we interact with the world around us.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap. We're going to define the state of a celestial being, hit the 3 steps to ascension, unpack this core idea of abiding the mind nowhere, look at the teachings to guide you, and finally, wrap up with some pretty strict warnings on avoiding modern spiritual traps.
All right, Section 1, the state of a celestial being.
So let's start with the ultimate goal here, a state of absolute serene freedom. But Feng's definition of a celestial being, or Shen, isn't your standard pop culture trope or traditional folklore. We're talking about the most unrestrained lives across 20 parallel worlds in 36-dimensional space. Yeah, 36 dimensions. Imagine moving way past our normal 3D human experience, where we're constantly bumping into physical limits, deadlines, emotional baggage. In this framework, celestials are entirely free from worry, completely open, and devoid of any obstruction. It's not just like having a relaxing weekend free from work. It is an absolute, perpetual state of unbounded existence.
The field of activity is vast, with brilliant prospects where much can be accomplished. And this brilliantly illustrates how the author sees these beings. They aren't just passively floating in the ether doing nothing. They act in accordance with their true nature. They take advantage of opportunities. But, and this is key, they do it without any stubbornness or attachment to the outcome. It's kind of like a master artist who paints a masterpiece just for the sheer joy of creating, right? Zero concern about whether it gets sold or praised. Celestials engage deeply with their vast reality, but they never cling to it.
Moving on to Section 2, the 3 steps to ascension.
So how does a mortal actually pull this off? Well, the author outlines 3 foundational steps, and the sequence here is absolutely crucial. Step 1, repay your debts and end your secular, worldly ties. You literally can't ascend if you're anchored by unfulfilled earthly obligations or relational strengths. Step 2, create ties with celestials and accumulate merits. Once you drop those secular anchors, you've got to actively build spiritual currency and connect with higher beings. And then step 3, transform human affection and nature into celestial nature. This is the ultimate alchemy, converting basic, instinctive human impulses into something divine. The text posits that only after this heavy foundational work is done can the final crucial state of mind actually be achieved.
Which brings us to Section 3, abiding the mind nowhere.
Let's see how this builds into the core philosophical thesis of the whole text. What does abiding the mind nowhere actually mean? Well, it's defined as the practice of keeping an empty mind until absolutely nothing exists within it. It means not focusing on or attaching to anything your senses perceive. Think about our modern lives for a second. We are constantly bombarded, right? Screens, notifications, noises, opinions. Our brains are deeply trained to latch onto every single input. Feng argues for the exact opposite. He presents this practice of total sensory non-attachment as the final key, the unlocking mechanism to becoming a celestial.
To really legitimize this demanding philosophy, Feng heavily grounds his framework in a foundational quote from Shakyamuni Buddha. Our minds should not abide in form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or dharma, but actually abide nowhere. By bringing in one of history's most recognized spiritual figures, he aligns this esoteric text with ancient traditions of enlightenment, showing that this idea of total non-attachment has some very deep roots.
This leads us to what we can call the ultimate detachment, emptying the heart of absolutely everything. And when Feng says everything, he means it in the most extreme, literal sense imaginable. It's not just a vague, feel-good idea of letting go of daily stress or forgiving an old grudge. As we unpack this, you'll see it requires actively detaching from an incredibly massive and radical list of worldly concepts.
The author insists that true detachment means having literally nothing in your mind. Relational, no family, no enemies, nobody involved with you. Material, forget money, wealth, delicacies, or even your own physical health. Societal, no country, politics, laws, or ambition to succeed. Imagine trying to completely erase the concept of your own nationality. And then, honestly, the most surprising one, Spiritual. You have to detach from religion, heaven, hell, Buddha, and magical arts. The text demands that even the desire for spiritual salvation or the concept of heaven itself has to be entirely emptied out if you truly want to abide nowhere. Now, what's really interesting here is the number 3. The author claims this astonishing level of absolute detachment is already the standard reality for lives in 3 very specific cosmic realms within his lore: the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium Islands continent. To give you a sense of the lore, the Elysium Islands continent is described as this supreme paradise, way beyond standard human comprehension, where absolute bliss is maintained precisely because the inhabitants hold on to nothing. Plus, Shufeng says real Lifechanyuan celestials here on Earth have basically already succeeded in doing this, walking among us with completely unattached minds.
All right, Section 4, Teachings to Guide You.
So, if total emptiness is the goal, what's the curriculum? Shufeng gives us a highly syncretic reading list, merging multiple global traditions into one unified path. He asserts that listening to these specific teachings will allow you to abide your mind nowhere. From the Christian tradition, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Buddhism, the Diamond Sutra, Heart Sutra, and Bodhidharma's bloodline theory. Taoism, Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. And finally, the Chanyuan and Shufeng corpus. It's incredibly rare to see distinct worldviews like Christian theology and Taoist naturalism treated as a single, cohesive textbook for emptying the mind. But he argues they all point to the exact same ultimate detachment.
And then, right after listing these deeply sacred ancient texts, the author drops this perfectly quirky little aside. He literally writes, "If you cannot do them this way, then I can marry you." I mean, talk about a sudden tonal whiplash. You're in the middle of this dense cosmological curriculum and bam! It's a strangely personal interjection right after demanding you detach from everything in the known universe. It definitely breaks up the heavy philosophy.
Finally, Section 5, Avoiding Modern Spiritual Traps.
Here, the text shifts to a much more urgent, cautionary tone. He gives severe warnings about the degenerating time we supposedly live in. The crucial point is this stark contrast. On the left, we have the true path, going straight to the source, the greatest creator. On the right, the cave of the silken web. This means spending your money and your lifetimes on web gurus, online chicken soup for the soul, and magical arts. Think about how relevant this is to modern internet culture. Endless scrolling, superficial influencers, spiritual grifters. He argues this modern elusive thinking just traps seekers in a web, spinning in circles forever until they're totally drained.
To help seekers avoid these traps, he lists some very specific red flags, claiming they're evidence of demons trying to trick you if you fail to keep your sacred lamp burning. He warns against hustling and bustling places, saying disasters gather there. And get this, he claims places with more disciples are actually more problematic. Usually we equate popularity with legitimacy, right? But Shufeng argues massive crowds are a sign of mass delusion. He warns that spooky places are where demons make waves, and that people practicing magical arts are basically just paranoid and possessed by devils.
So we leave you with this provocative question based on today's text. Can you abide your mind nowhere? Look around at your attachments, your career, your digital life, your deep convictions about success. Whether you've used Yufeng's intense path as a literal roadmap to the cosmos, or just a fascinating framework to study, it undeniably challenges how tightly we grip our everyday reality. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep seeking, keep structuring, and always keep questioning the knowledge you find.